At the pants shit. Okay.
All right. Excellent. Here we go. All right. Okay. We are what looks to be live.
I think we're live. It looks good. I like this. I like this. Maybe I should zoom myself in more or something. I don't know how to do that, but
I'll do it.
I think
I'll zoom
we
in.
do look good. I'm happy with this. This is nice. Nice camera. We both
There you
look
go.
high, crisp quality. As they
Yeah,
say.
yeah. It's actually, and we're pretty equal heights of room on the thing as well.
Yeah, we are.
Like headspace. Yeah. What we'll do is we'll keep working on this, and we'll like get some cool graphics. Right now, it's just got that graphics. We'll work on like the graphics a bit later.
Yeah.
Have some more things. Have some more plugs or links or I don't know. Like we'll figure it out.
Like how I made this graphic, like with the two like sort of border things that look like the AEW like logo thing.
Yeah, I do like it. I think it looks, it's really cool. I think that, and then, maybe like the name of the show, whatever we figure out the show name, whatever we decide to call it.
Yeah, this looks pretty
Jacob!
clean.
Jacob, he's here. Jacob, I'm very sorry for not getting back to you about that Crash 4 message, by the way. I'm meaning to respond. I just completely forgot. I was going to link you some Tirada track, but I just completely forgot. So I apologize for that. Yeah. What was that?
I said unacceptable, CrystalFissure, unacceptable.
Yeah, it is. My face is as rosy as Billy Burns' cheeks, but unfortunately, fortunately, that's because it's very hot in here, and I'm emanating a lot of heat from today's events. Ooh, Nijma says, "Hey mates, greetings from Germany. Can't wait for your thoughts."
I think. Look. As we'll discuss in a bit, the CrystalFissure YouTube channel is not usually a wrestling site, but look, I think if you're gonna listen to a wrestling stream, and you don't know anything about wrestling, this is the one to listen to. You're gonna get a nice, interesting.
I think so. I definitely agree, and I think it's gonna be good because we'll try and give a bit of background about it. I think it's a good idea. Background about it for not quite for like a person that's never heard of it, but at least kind of somewhat, give them just give them a bit of background. And then secondly, use it to pivot and keep plugging. And the link is in the description, as you can see. What we're going to officially launch the YouTube channel. So this is basically Angus and I's channel, and I mean it is taken the moniker CF for CrystalFissure. Angus has always wanted to be able to say that he's CrystalFissure or representing CrystalFissure. I know that's been a long time dream.
Well, I've always wanted you to say hello, everyone. CrystalFissure, Andrew here from CrystalFissure. That's what I want.
Andrew from CrystalFissure, like the CrystalFissure podcast network, so to speak.
Yes, I mean we might get other people on. The channel is very much a it's in development. The whole concept of what we would be doing with a wrestling channel, like why would we create it, not just do it here? But I want to migrate, hopefully, some people from here who might be interested in wrestling over to the wrestling channel where they can watch us talk about wrestling.
And the thing is that there's like this, there's this giant audience, and like I want to be, and I'm sure everyone starts out with this. I want to be with you, with Al Malloy, not with Lyle Taylor because he's a WWE mark. I want to be like in the spirit of like Trunkio Club, and not be a pants shitting, bed wetting WWE fan. Like 98% of all of wrestling discourse on YouTube is completely one-sided, and it's funny how they think it's the other side, but it really isn't. Every mainstream channel is, and I've got my rant ready for the people that are jumping back on now. If you're a casual fan and you're on, that's okay. But there's certain people that have come back that you want to hear me rant, you will hear me rant.
I mean, we never spoke about this directly, but I think we both have the idea that if we were ever to do a YouTube channel for wrestling or whatever, it would exclusively be non-WWE content. It would actually be the content that we actually watch is what we would cover. I wouldn't cover content that I didn't actually know about. And I don't actually consume any WWE except for what Reddit or some of the dirt sheets talk about. So I wouldn't actually like be able to in-depthly discuss anything WWE whatsoever.
That's right, and nor would and I mean that's the biggest problem. I mean, obviously, of course, I say this to 13 people, which is actually quite good for wrestling, to be honest. Thank you, Amelia Kukul, for the $5 donation. Um, it's coffee money. But I think what I wanted to say is like some of those YouTube channels, for example, just to call them out in front of 10 people, like your Pilana or whatever productions and stuff like that use like AEW botches as an example of like why like it's dangerous and Daniel Bryan shouldn't be there and all that kind of stuff. It's like all this kind of people using these poorly researched, poorly produced, like remember that why Randy Orton is better than Kenny Omega. We're not going to have that kind of bullshit on our channel, because even in the other direction, I even think like, why Kenny Omega is better than Randy. Fuck that. Like, it's just total reductive, useless kind of content.
That's right. That's right. It's like I think we talk a lot about wrestling all the time with each other, and and we do videos for Riot City Wrestling that we for our own amusement, our own enjoyment. I think, and it's just this is going to be like just a place where we're like, all right, let's do a stream tonight. We'll talk about it on there. Or I got an idea for this. I want to talk about this. We'll do it there. It's like kind of like also to get our own thoughts down in like a. Shall we say
memorable? I mean, we're not strangers to like covering wrestling over the years. There's been a handful of shows we've done. Shows, for example, that I never disliked the Big Show. There was no evidence there of me disliking the Big Show at all. I never shat on him. Patrick. Yeah, while I do not want to scare away any viewers, I would. The answer to that question is no, we're not, and for quite significant moral reasons. In terms of enjoyment of the show, you do you, Patrick. But in terms of like what I want to cover and stuff like that, and why I don't like him, it's not worth getting into, because it's so long and elaborate that you'll be bored and you won't like what I have to say. So that's my opinion on that, unfortunately.
Yeah, but again, I think after tonight, the WWE versus AEW conversation, I feel, has been put to bed in terms of looking at them as like in the same realm, I think. And we've been saying for a while, and lots of people in WWE themselves say that they're not wrestling, they're sports entertainment, they're this, they're that. They're not a wrestling company, they make movies, all this stuff. So this is not new verbiage from them, but I think it's taken someone like a CM Punk to actually come back and say that what I was doing from 2006 to 2014, that doesn't contribute to my wrestling career.
Yeah.
And I think that is the distinction to make after tonight. And I think if there's a big takeaway from that, it's like you can enjoy whatever WWE has to offer, but what that is not what AEW is, what New Japan is, what Impact is, what Ring of Honor is, what MLW is, what AAA is, what CMLL. They're all, and you can see this by the fact that look who's working together. Look who the combined wrestling like alliance is, the NWA, all that as well. And then WWE's over here, an island unto themselves.
Yeah,
that's
right.
Pro wrestling, and what WWE is doing is something else.
That's right, and we'll cover that now. As we begin. So we'll start it now officially. So the VOD will officially begin here, and all right, we'll count it. I'll count it down. Here we go. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. CrystalFissure Nintendogen64 here with an unnamed podcast, an unnamed episode of something. We don't really know what this is, but we just wanted to talk about CM Punk. Really?
That's right. We whenever something big happens, we want to talk about it, and we did a little video a few weeks ago on my channel when the news dropped that CM Punk and Brian Danielson, were potentially coming to AEW, and since then the rumor mill went, and everyone was talking about it. And tonight, AEW Rampage, the first dance, it happened. CM Punk is back.
That's right.
And I can't. I'm over the moon. I've not been able to. I think you know how you feel, right, when you're like, I don't know, about to do something like a play on the stage, or you're about to do like a 100-meter sprint or something like that. That energy before it,
Yeah,
you know, that excitement, that sort of like
yeah,
smile, like anxiety or something. I felt that like all day. Like I've literally felt like emotionally exhausted all day from this, and
yeah.
I literally made a cup of coffee at like 9:30 at night so I could like be alert for this
That's right.
podcast.
Can you just put me a touch slower because I'm hearing me just a little bit?
Yes, you got it.
Perfect, perfect, excellent, thanks. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Like I have been, I'm absolutely exhausted. I am absolutely exhausted from today because there's been so much from so many places. It's been a great day for posts, as Mongo ebooks would say. I'd love to get him on the channel one day. Great day for posts. It's been a great day for. It's been a terrible day for the haters and the losers. And it's been a great day to be AEW, to be an AEW fan, to be a wrestling fan, because this is something that you and I think everyone in the chat here, and more have been waiting for, really since the day after the Royal Rumble when CM Punk coming back. They said it's the "Are we there yet?" of wrestling, and they asked that the second after he left, didn't they? Really?
So I remember, it would have been 2014. It would have been the day after the Royal Rumble. I was lying on a inflatable mattress on the floor in your bedroom. We just watched the Royal Rumble, and we woke up the next day. And we were ready to watch Raw, and I had it on my phone. I was like looking through Reddit or Lords of Pain or something, and it was like, "Oh, CM Punk has walked from WWE." I'm like, "Oh, okay." All right, where is he? Is he coming back? All right, and then the next week passed.
So,
All right, now
well, we'll
CM Punk's coming
see you
back
next
week, right?
week. Yeah, he'll be back. Like
He'll
they'll
be
they'll
back.
come
CM
to an
Punk.
agreement. They'll figure it out. You know. They'll,
And then we heard he was taking a sabbatical, if you remember that. That was the word used,
yep.
and then he never came back. And we've been waiting all this time. And then he did UFC, and he did some movies, and he's been doing commentary, and he even did the WWE backstage show on
Yep.
Fox.
Yep.
And we were just like, all right, that's it. He's not coming back. It's done.
Yep.
And we gave up.
Yeah,
But then tonight,
we completely gave up. And really, pretty much most people gave up until I would say, I reckon most people gave up until I think this year you started to see a little bit more of the potential. I think once when they saw, not that we're out of the pandemic, we really aren't, but in terms once we're out of the social pandemic, as they would say, where people basically take it seriously. There was starting to be thoughts that maybe you could see something, but then of course it only really truly took off a couple of weeks ago, when it was leaked to Sean Ross Sapp, who claims that, and I tend to believe him, that the knowledge of this happening was actually came from WWE, probably because they wanted to kind of get the jump on things like that happening. They did a similar thing with Adam Cole as well, you know?
Yep.
So I think that's definitely what sort of went down there. WWE basically leaked it to your partner and stuff like that. And as we saw with how everything played out tonight, you'll see that the sheer amount of manpower and sheer amount of NDAs and secret keeping that would have had to have actually been done was astronomical. Look no further than the ice cream bars. How do you produce 15,000 ice cream bars at a plant and not tell anyone?
Exactly. The t-shirts, the merch, the video package, the graphics.
Yep.
Like everything was like orchestrated and ready, for his return. It was unbelievable, like the kind of groundswell of guys behind the scenes that must have been in the know,
That's right. He also suggests, Kingston probably knew for a while. A lot of his close friends probably knew for a while. Obviously, his wife, AJ Lee, April, as they say, she would have known.
As you said, Renee Paquette and John Moxley.
Renee Paquette, yeah. There's so many people to credit for this, and there was check it out. Just type in AEW Media Scrum. Just go on their YouTube channel. You'll see that there's a lot, like a 15-minute sort of interview questions towards Punk and Tony Khan, and he answers a lot of questions, but there's still a lot to be answered. There's still a lot to happen. There's still a lot of discourse to be had. There's still a lot of content to be, I think, made, and but really beyond that, a lot of new memories to form with CM Punk. And I think that if he goes in with the right mentality, which I truly believe he does, he will, we are in for potentially his greatest run yet, but even better than that, a run that he can be, I think, professionally proud of, unlike apparently the past run.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, definitely. But I mean, like, if you really like look at his time in WWE in 2006 to 2014, like when I was a fan, because I dipped out of WWE in around 2010ish, so I really only caught him for the start in 2008 2009,
Yeah.
and then I came back after the pipe bomb had happened. So
Yeah.
my perspective of this guy was he was a great mid-card heel, mid-card babyface, had a brief run with the world title, and that kind of thing. And then when Straight Edge Society happened, I kind of dipped out, and I came back after he had already had the Summer of Punk and won the title. And I enjoyed his title run in 2012 for what it was. But I can understand that there will be a lot of people unhappy with the way he was portrayed. He was never seen as the guy, and I feel like for someone who had the ability to connect with the audience, and was good in the ring, on the mic as he was. The opportunities I don't think were there for him, despite the fact that he had such a long title run. The focus was never on him. And then after he lost the title to The Rock, he kind of had the match against The Undertaker, and then kind of dipped around the mid card doing kind of random programs until he chose to leave. So if you look at his whole time, there's bright spots, but I think overall it's kind of just a bit of a murkiness of just things that happened for him. And obviously backstage he was unhappy, he was injured, he was, as he said, he was sick. And now he's back and he's in a place where he's mentally, physically, and spiritually happier than he's ever been.
That's right, because he even said that everything was a challenge back where he was, and everything was a fight. Basically everything was a fight, and everything had to be discussed and like argued upon whether it was relevant and stuff like that, which we've seen since his release, his Colt Cabana podcast. We've seen everything that he has said over and over and over again play out among other wrestlers. He's not the first, he's not the last. He's the most famous example, but he's definitely not the first or the last. And just to add as well, Andy King Skywalker says that his friend is a huge WWE fan, and last night was his first ever TV viewing of AEW. I think Punk is going to draw the lapsed fan for sure, and we'll talk about that in a sec. But thanks for the comment, and yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. But the thing about Punk is that he basically he's not the first guy to say everything that he did about their company, about WWE, but he's the most famous example, really.
Yeah, and as we have spoken about a fair bit too, his pipe bomb promo, which he, by the way, for the record, he hates the term pipe bomb. That's not his idea to call it that. In fact, he didn't actually call it a pipe bomb. He called it a pipe bomb the following week, and then they retroactively called it the pipe bomb. Anyway, point aside. You can trace the origins of AEW and the discontent with the WWE and all of that stuff. You can trace it back to that famous night in 2011, the night that Squared Circle was created and really had a platform for people to talk about wrestling in a more mainstream setting. And then you have just like the discontent, the misuse of Punk, the leaving of Punk, the Bryan stuff. Obviously Jericho leaving and doing the thing with Kenny in New Japan and all this stuff. And you had this situation where you had the three guys, Kenny and the Bucks, who looked at what was going on with Punk, looked at what was going on with WWE, and said, you know what? I can do better. We can do better than this. Yeah. And that, led to eventually the creation of AEW. And, it's quite the... I mean, you can turn this into like a straightforward narrative, but all the pieces are there for it. You just have to look for them. Yeah,
because, at the end of the day, those guys would have never been happy in WWE. Like if you're a Young Bucks or Omega or Page or whatever, and Cody, when they end up beating him, he had just come out of that system. They
That's
sort of
right.
took him in. Kevin Owens basically said, "Hey, look after my guy. He's a really good guy." That's Cody, and they became friends, and that ended up being the impetus for All In and everything like that. So they had the experience, they had the personal anecdotes from both friends of theirs in the Indies that they knew, but also a guy that was grandson of a plumber, son of one of the guys that was actually in their sort of creative sphere. Dusty
Yeah,
Rhodes
that's right.
was a high up ish guy in their developmental and stuff like that, and very well respected among staff. Not Vince, but for the record, because he never wanted the polka dot. So not respected by Vince. Let's not twist that. That guy doesn't respect anybody or anything except money. But people there that in the company other than him absolutely respected him. And what did that get him? Nothing. Nepotism actually got him fuck all. Really.
No, you're true. You're spot on, and this whole long-winded point is just to say that when CM Punk finally came to AEW tonight, when the show opened and he walked out, it really felt like, I think, to a lot of people, like he was coming home.
Yeah,
Like,
he's welcome home.
even though he'd
Yeah.
never been to AEW before, he belonged there implicitly. And if you listen to his podcast, his media scrum with Tony Khan and his promo, honestly, like, it sounds like this is the like homecoming of a lifetime for this guy.
Yeah, it's gonna be his forever home.
And it's interesting
he
for
said
me
he'd do
that,
anything basically.
and this will probably be like the last time I properly discuss this, but and we can get into your pants shitters, bedwetters rant now if you want. But I find it interesting. Maybe some guys in the chat can kind of clear this up for me, but.
Yeah.
It would be interesting if you were a WWE fan and a CM Punk fan simultaneously, and you kind of have to like deal with the fact that he doesn't consider his time that he spent there to be worth even looking back on fondly. I mean, go to the media scrum and someone asks him a question on how do you feel like comparing this moment tonight when you debuted in AEW to the Money in the Bank moment where you walked out, and he said that this felt organic. This didn't feel like a job. Yeah. He does not look upon that with fond memories at all.
That's right. And that's exactly right. Like, if he has, CM Punk has a very passionate fan base of people that love him, but then there's also a massive passionate fan base of people that hate him. Now, they can claim joke as much as they want, but the Circle Jerk subreddit, SC Jerk, They despise everything about CM Punk. They use him as a circle jerk tool, but they despise him because he called out WWE on their BS. They've hated him since 2014. There have been a large portion of fans that have despised him for completely peeling back the curtain on his run. They wanted him to walk away, never tell anything about what happened, his experience, not talk about him nearly dying. They wanted him to just go away in silence. And now he's back. And he's clearly not going to be silent. But at the same time, don't be too worried, because I don't think he's going to be making his run be I used to be mistreated here, now I'm gone. I think that really...
him to talk about WWE whatsoever.
I don't think he's going to be doing that. He might make a couple of little jabs at little things, maybe reference other people's feuds of people that were in that company. I'm sure if he ever feuded with Moxley, he could take the piss a bit. They could draw back to some of their stuff.
Well, yeah,
but it's over. He's done with that. That's a career. That part of his career's done.
And to that point as well, I think the best I guess way going forward now for AEW to treat WWE, and I think hopefully this sets the sort of precedent for it, the groundwork for it. I mean, just distance yourself from it. They're not anything to you now. If WWE consider sleep to be a competition to them, a competitor, sorry, I paused there for a second. If WWE consider sleep to be a competitor, then AEW shouldn't consider WWE competition, because AEW is its own thing, WWE is its own thing. All you got to do, instead of competing with them, is tell people, I am the thing that you think you'll get over here. You're actually getting over here, and what they're giving you is not what you think you're getting.
That's right.
And treat it as, what he said tonight with the whole, I left pro wrestling in 2005 and I'm back now in 2021. That actually, and I've seen a lot of discourse online. That has hurt people a lot more than if he just came out there and said, "I hate WWE.
Yeah.
This is the new place to be. This is the future. WWE sucks." He didn't
He's,
say that.
he said, the quote was, on August 13, 2005, I left professional wrestling. On August 20, 2021, I'm back, and I'm back for you. That's what he said. And that's the crazy thing that he said that makes it just so exciting, is that he is back. I mean, obviously, as he says he's back for me. He said, I'm not just back for you, I'm back for me too. Very Walter White-esque. Very Walter White-esque thing to say. But he's back, and he wants to, and he's here to talk about, he wanted to talk about, that period of time where he literally said that, he had to step away because it was, bad for all types of his health. He had to do it. And had he stayed, I don't know what would have happened. I think it would have been a very, very dark time had he actually stayed into like 2014, 2015, 2016, etc.
Oh, totally. I just like anytime you look at the guy from, the last year or so of his run, he just looks sick and miserable.
Stuff, yeah.
And I remember, I noticed it. Other people noticed it. He was just not looking great. And as he said, why would he want to stay in the place that made him sick, that got him sick?
That's right. So with that stuff as well, though. So where some of the pants shitting comes in, as you say, the bedwetting, the piss diapering, so to speak. I love the term pants shitting. It's just great because it encapsulates that kind of fan base. I sometimes I will look up the opposite of my opinion because I find it fascinating. And my favorite thing is when there's a few little things when you've been gotten to or you're really upset, is you take a screenshot in low quality and just insult the guy's appearance, just full on, just go, someone's like, he looks like a 62-year-old old man, he's got grey hair. I'm like, okay, so good one, yep, excellent, good circle jerk there, congrats. And then you'll also get people that'll be like, he was going great until he made it all about Fed bad, right? And the Fed being Federation.
He didn't make it about Fed.
He didn't make it about Fed bad. But their insecurity is so palpable that they cannot comprehend that someone could possibly make a disparaging remark about that company without uttering the name, by the way. But yes, they cannot handle it. And so I saw comments saying, I was really enjoying the promo until he got up to that. And it's like, no, you weren't. You were always looking to dislike it. You hate him. And that's why you were looking for any excuse to dislike it. So, Yeah,
it's kind of really, really... The new one is... Well, that's the biggest pop since Stone Cold Steve Austin. You always got to say, oh, well, it was a big pop, but WWE has also had big pops, so, you can't really, can't really just say it's the biggest pop of all time.
So I've watched a bunch of... if you want to get into that pissing contest kind of stuff, we watched some pops today. Watched the big Austin Returns pop against the Invasion. Massive pop, absolutely massive. I'm not gonna say that it didn't. John Cena's return just a month ago. From what I saw, we saw that. Yeah, big pop. Big pop mixed in with unfortunately mixed in with the Thunderdome crowd, which is now a staple of their shows. So you cannot actually take a single real crowd reaction anymore in WWE. You can't. It's over. That era is now gone. Everything is now a SmackDown tape show.
In terms the live shows even.
Yeah, it's done. It's done. They'll pump music through. But Stone Cold Steve Austin, absolutely monumental pops he has had in his career. We've even been at one of them. We went to Raw 2018, the 25th anniversary. He came out, huge pop.
Huge pop. Yeah. Look, I'm not denying that they get big pops, but
it was not as big as this one. That's just the truth.
I cannot honestly say that I can think of a pop that is actually, bigger than this, and it was sustained longer, and it was louder, and it was more, I guess, there was something in the air about the whole situation, because we've been watching AEW since its inception. We've watched every single episode of Dynamite, every dark elevation for the most part. We would consider ourselves AEW fans to the fullest degree. We know we know the iceberg. We're at the bottom of the iceberg, the deepest lore. You follow Alan Angel's dad on Twitter. You can't get any more.
He follows me. Alan Dad follows me.
Oh, wait, you don't follow him?
I follow him, but I follow
Oh,
him
good.
because he
Good.
followed me first.
Yeah, right. Anyway,
Dad.
so I mean, we're with it, but I can safely say that after tonight, um, the last 2 years of AEW have felt like a distant memory.
Yeah.
We're entering a new era now, which is interesting to say after being around for 2 years. But I think, as I said, the first real episode of Dynamite starts on this week,
Yeah. But
and
that's not
and
to
I think there's
discount
like going
anything
to be
that's happened because it's still mostly the same. That's the thing.
it's
Even
still
though,
mostly the same, but it's like there's just having the guy, just having CM Punk there, creates this like credibility, viability. I said it to you earlier today. I said, look, if SummerSlam sucks today, if SummerSlam is really bad and doesn't deliver and people are annoyed with it, there is a real chance that people will look at the Rampage show from literally less than 24 hours beforehand,
Mhm.
be like, holy shit, this is 15,000 people. They're getting what they want. It's great. I don't need to watch WWE anymore. I can go watch this other viable product because, again, as we always talk about, people don't tend to back, the losing team or the other weaker team. But if something's seen to be um, as popular as WWE, or if
Yep.
not more popular,
Yep.
then there's a better chance that they'll jump to it.
Yeah, and everything about the return. I saw someone say that if this is, and this was a sincere comment. This was a sincere comment. You will never believe this. He said that if this was a WWE, the lights would have gone out. There would have been a big light thing. Fog would have came up. There would have been all this pageantry about Punk. And I'm just thinking, oh my fucking god. Sometimes you know what you just need, and they even touched upon this on the press conference. Wrestling is simple. Sometimes you just need a fucking music track and a fucking background. That's all you
Yeah,
need. And the
yeah,
crowd is the crowd is the voice. The crowd is the orchestra. Singing the tune, so to speak. We saw that with Jericho, but like literally, these people that are saying, "Oh, it should have gone to black. It should have blacked out the screen. They should have blacked it all out. They should have done all this hyper presentation. They should have made it amazing." No,
yeah.
they started the show. They said upcoming is the biggest announcement in history, and then 10 seconds later, they're like, "Here it is." And you know what,
Yeah.
people? And you know what? That creates an environment that, holy fuck, anything can happen. No one needs that kind of the Cody Rhodes tier overindulgent entrance like that.
That's not Punk.
That's not Punk. That's not
It
CM
doesn't
Punk.
fit with him. And I guess we could talk about the some of the stuff he spoke about in the media conference that I think has to do with your point here. Now that he's in AEW, he's spoken about that wrestling can be fun and should be fun, and there's a time and place for being serious, but there's also a lots of space to be fun and have fun with it, and go out there without a script and see what comes up. And if you make a mistake, you learn from it, you move on, you don't
Yeah, get fired.
live in
That's the
fear
thing.
of
And
being
these
fired.
these freak WWE fans online that like that. That's why there is an account called AEW Botches, right? Because it is born out of a critical nature that they perceive WWE has been slighted after all these years for being hypercritical. So they're like, we need to make the opposite for AEW. And so if anyone ever botches, we need to say they're unsafe and untrained.
That's right,
Total
yeah.
garbage. And anyone that follows that, and if you're a pro wrestler following that, you're mentally ill. You need to be checked into a psychiatric hospital, and you'll never make it. And that's referring to real life wrestlers that do indeed follow these accounts and prey on that kind of negativity. And it's just interesting because as Punk just put it perfectly. He said and implied that if you fuck up in that company in WWE, you get in trouble. You get in trouble. You get punished for it. We've seen this happen. We've seen a young black male named Kofi Kingston be punished for what seemed like about 5 years for a simple timing mistake against Randy Orton.
That's right. We know you're right.
And the reason why I bring up and I say I black Kofi Kingston, not just Kofi Kingston, is because you can't tell me for 1 second that was not somewhat racially charged. That if it was some other guy, or Randy Orton in that exact situation, it wouldn't be as much of a big deal. But this young guy makes a mistake and he's punished for it as if he fucking killed someone. It's sickening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's a huge degree of like too many cooks in the kitchen, as Punk says. You're 16 people standing around figuring out how to do your spot. Well, yeah, and from our experience in wrestling, when in our company we work with Riot City Wrestling. Um, the best stuff is just comes to you in spur of the moment things.
Yeah.
Group, there's a few people just bouncing ideas off each other. It's not like this heavily choreographed, heavily produced thing. And wrestling's at its best when it's like tonight. Just hit the music and have the guy walk out.
Have the guy walk out, and of course he does walk out. It's the biggest pop of all time. It is the biggest sustained reaction of all time. The only thing close, everyone says Stone Cold. I'll actually tell you stuff that's come close. It's the reaction to someone like a Kobashi or a Misawa, right? Kobashi's last match, 2013. That's what I'm comparing Punk's debut. Debut to. I'm not actually like Stone Cold's cool and all. Like, don't get me wrong. Like he was over. But you don't know over until you've seen some of the Japanese guys being over. Another great one, the sustained crowd reaction to Doug Furnace and Crawford versus was it Doug Furnace and Pan Am Express? Pan Am Express versus Kikuchi and Kobashi or Kawada or something like that. One of the most famous tag matches of all time in All Japan. Like that has like similar thing where it's just crowd going ballistic the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, and to that point as well, some of those like late stage, like late into a like a Tokyo Dome match or something like that, you'll hear crowds go ballistic, standing on their feet, cheering for like very long periods of time. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it depends like what you're comparing it to, like a pop or a crowd reaction. I mean, in terms of like literally just hitting the guy's music and having him come out and just walk out to the ring and be cheered like that for that sustained amount of time, I can't think of anything even close.
Miu says, did Jushin Thunder Liger have a sustained cheer for his final match? Yeah, so Agus and I were at that. His final, crowd was ballistic there, and in fact, that for me is the biggest retirement reaction I've ever seen.
I'm that's right. That was a really great moment.
Basically, people were going crazy for the next 10 minutes after when he exited. To this day, the most unselfish man in the entire wrestling industry of all time would be Liger, I would say.
Being there for Liger's retirement was something special, I think. Yeah. It's interesting because when Liger came out, it was like a respectful, this is the end kind of, it's Liger. When Punk came out, it was like a holy shit, this is the start of something new kind of thing. It's weird how pops can have their own kind of
there's different vibe to a pop, different personality to a pop. So so he comes out and it's just this enormous reaction. It basically crescendos. There's the little static thing. It's a pop. Then there's the music pop, and then there's a massive pop for that. And there's about 80%. Because they still think that this could be WWE and this could be a false flag, an MJF, a Sean Spears, some guy coming out pretending. And then when he walks through the curtain or walks through the tunnel, so to speak, that's when it truly takes off. And
also, he came out to the babyface side as well.
Yeah, the babyface side, yeah. And he comes out to an enormous, it grows from there. And he's clearly taken aback. He's clearly holding back tears. He ends up tearing up. For me, it took me about 30, 40 seconds. I popped first, and then when it just sort of all hit, and it every one of us kind of went pale. That's how I reacted.
I think we all had a similar kind of.
It was yeah.
I felt like some kind of pain in my stomach, and my hands were all tingly, and I had to stand up and jump feeling back into myself, and then they cut to a guy that represented us so well, as the CM Punk shots came through, and it's just a mismatch of sound everywhere. They cut to this guy that is crying, and we're looking at him, basically doing the Spider-Man point, because at that point that was just all of us there. That was me, you, and Jess, just teary, and just kind of I watched it again with my dad. And I was trying to hold back tears again, and I watched it 6 times. Thinking about it, I think about certain elements, and I'm happy for the guy because he came out and he got their reaction, and I think I'm getting emotional talking about this now, but I feel like for the last 7 years, he's wanted this, and he obviously didn't jive with the WWE product and what they were putting out and
Yeah.
everything like that. He didn't jive with it, and
Yeah.
now he's in a place full of over 15,000 like-minded individuals.
Yep. That's correct.
And it's like his dreams have come true. Everything he ever
And I
wanted
mean,
has now.
he's so we'll talk about some of the analytics a bit later, but just looking real quick now as I'm trying to get my stream up for a sec. CM Punk's arrived in AEW, 1.7 million views 9 hours ago. CM Punk speaks for the first time in AEW, 1.7 million views. The media scrum, we only went up a few hours ago, 257,000 views. This is one of the most enormous things that's ever happened in the company. They've got 3 dislikes, probably from WWE fans. You can, yeah. That's the thing. He's very divisive. Don't get me wrong. But the thing is that he, that the reason why everyone was crying and stuff like that was because it's just like it's such a release and such an amazing feeling to know that this guy is going to be back in an industry that we thought he'd been chased out of. And he said the words like, "I don't hate pro wrestling, like I hated whatever they were," basically.
That's right. Yeah.
And so I wanted to, it's sort of in my brief thing of bringing up the other side. A lot of people mocked that guy for crying, right? A lot of WWE fans, that was all they had, because what they do is every week they look for a certain critique. This week it was the Sting powerbomb, stuff like that, right? They always look for something because they're I don't know, something's wrong with him. And this time it was one of the big things was this guy crying and they're mocking him. And I want to read a couple comments. That's great.
Please.
Referred
The
to
floor
that.
is yours.
The Barry lad says, that line ripped because it's infuriating the worst accounts on this app. And Jamesy says, I saw Meltzer botches mocking the lad crying as well. Rattled doesn't even come close. Shook, gotten to, rocked to the core. That's exactly what these people are. They are running scared because they thought that they were going to be able to call it a niche, small pissant company like Triple H called it. They thought that was going to be it for a very long time. And you and I both knew that wasn't the case. And we knew that CM Punk coming in would be one of the key figures to not getting the wrestlers over, because they've done a fucking great job at doing that already themselves, but rather getting it over to the kind of people that just simply will not give another product a chance.
That's that, yeah. I mean, we talk about the Punk moving the needle, the lapsed fan, the like, what kind of rating are we going to expect? So yeah, Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics, he put up a interesting stat that tonight's show did 5 times the engagement on Twitter that Dynamite did this week. And Dynamite got obviously 975,000 views, views at 0.35 in the demo. And this was like interesting because last week's Rampage was up 2 times from the previous Dynamite as well. So we're entering uncharted territory now in terms of like, what is this going to do for the company? What's it going to do for the ratings? What's it going to do for the conversation outside of wrestling as a whole? Like how is AEW going to be perceived? Is it going to be maybe, is it competition finally? Is it time to talk about, I said, AEW might not consider themselves competition to WWE because, WWE is something else and AEW is pro wrestling.
Yeah.
But I think it's, you have to look at scale and size and what we're dealing with here, and the fact that NXT is, going back to a tape format. It's not getting out of the CWC. AEW has leapfrogged it, and it's getting, hopefully now with CM Punk, we'll get consistently over 1 million viewers a week, and we'll see where that tracks and where that goes. And then we're getting Danielson in and maybe Adam Cole in, and then you're just off to the races. You're going to have in September, the month of September, we've spoken about this, potentially Cincinnati, Newark, New Jersey, the Arthur Ashe, and then obviously going back to the All Out. You're going to have 4 shows in a row, over 10,000 tickets sold.
Yeah.
Like we're entering like, a real interesting time now.
And John Cena has really been a big draw for WWE in their house show market, their live events market, because he is a bona fide star outside of wrestling now. If people live reports say that what he does is he comes in, gets the hot tag, literally just hits his 5 moves, and then does that. But guess what? That draws money. Like, I don't agree with it. I don't like it. Doesn't interest me at all. But that draws money from younger kids and fans and stuff like that. Point being, though, is that CM Punk, I think, can have a similar effect. But the difference is that they're going to be getting into a product that is far more, in my opinion, far more engaging and far more varied and way easier to begin to like. Whereas elsewhere, it's just a lot harder to. I think getting into AEW has never been easier. There's accessible YouTube shows, there's podcasts, there's highlight clips. It's not a hard show to get into at this point.
Yeah,
you could jump in today.
The flagship is only 2 hours a week. Like, Dynamite's only 2 hours a week, and that. I mean, Rampage now being an extra hour, you can watch it, but I think more often than not going forward, Rampage will be like a supplemental show to Dynamite, but it'll have like maybe an angle here or there that like kind of is must see television. But if you're getting into WWE, and especially with the brand split, like I'm not really a brand split guy. I think it does well at the start, but then it kind of it's hard to keep it going, and you lose your audience, and they don't care too much afterwards. But you have a situation where if you're watching SummerSlam this week, you're gonna have to be following a bit of Raw, a bit of SmackDown, to kind of get the gist of it. That's like 5 hours of programming a week. Plus, if you're NXT's got their shows coming up. Maybe NXT UK built something, NXT itself. In a week to get to these 2 shows, you have to watch 10 hours of programming or something.
Yeah, that's right. It's pretty dire, and I mean it's probably a good idea to not have NXT, considering if they were gonna include that at SummerSlam, then you're fucked.
So I mean, and that's I guess the interesting thing now is that WWE put up its C show, its third brand, the NXT show, and people will say, it was always on Wednesdays on the network. It was never put up there it's just USA wanted 2 more hours of programming from WWE, and they happen to have this show. No, don't even I think that time for that argument is long gone. Evident by the fact of the gutting of the NXT roster, the downsizing of it, and the change in direction now that AEW is basically untouchable from that kind of side of things.
Yeah, they can't do it. They can't really screw over their rights fees. If anything, they're only going to screw their own rights fees over trying to continue to compete, because they're not getting cancelled. Contrary to whatever some racist cuck shock jock host will tell you, they're not getting cancelled. They're just not. Their numbers will never get them cancelled at this stage. So
that's right, and I mean, and the point of I guess I was making with the whole NXT thing, because we've spoken at length on my channel in the last couple of weeks about NXT, but now you have to look at, okay, well, if AEW has outgrown NXT, it's past NXT now. What's the next sort of comparison to make? Where's the next benchmark?
Yeah. Well, the next benchmark.
It's Raw. It's Monday Night Raw.
It's
That's
Raw. It's not SmackDown, because again, another contrary to popular belief. The pants shitters and the haters and the losers love to say that oh wow, but they can't get anywhere near SmackDown, and it's like SmackDown is on network television. By default, it will pretty much bottom out at 1 million no matter what, because people just have it on. Nielsen homes, old people. I mean, it won't get a high demo, for example, but older people, it'll be stuck on there at that time. You're gonna see, I think, firsthand what kind of hangers on, so to speak, will actually contribute to viewership, because you're gonna see that with TBS, where there's just gonna be old people that fall asleep watching
Yes.
The Big Bang Theory, right? And and we're gonna start off quarters at 1,100,000 in in next year at AEW. That has nothing to do with what draws. You can put Luther there and be like, oh, that's it. He's a fucking huge draw, which I guess he is. But do not discount the network. There are so many factors that come down to ratings, and it really, really annoys me that most of the modern even the modern analytical pundits do not look at it and rank it against what it's competing with, because that is such an important distinction when it comes to television ratings. But point about that is we're not comparing it to SmackDown. Shut the fuck up. It doesn't mean anything. There is absolutely nothing, no comparison to SmackDown. It's not relevant. It's
once
raw.
once AEW is on CBS, what's the other one? ABC or the
NBC,
once it's on one of the actual, or NBC, once it's on one of those channels, then we can maybe look into that.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, I mean, we're coming up.
And if you want to compete, go SmackDown. Please, feel free. You can put it on Fox Sports 1. I think that'd be a great idea. If you want to, we want to compare that. We want to have a Friday Night War of Rampage versus SmackDown. I think you guys should move to Fox Sports 1. I think that would definitely be an even playing ground, and I'd be happy to concede if AEW lost there. Sony Ken Maynard says, I watched live and I've watched it 3 times on here, and it still doesn't feel real. I know it doesn't. It almost doesn't feel real either. And till I think when Bryan Danielson debuts, which at this point seems to be almost a certainty, when that happens, I think people are going to fucking die, because that guy. The difference between Punk and Danielson is Punk has his haters. Okay,
that's right. Yeah,
I would be lying if I didn't say at some point in that 7 years I thought that I didn't like what he was doing. I didn't like the fact that he was on that talk show. I didn't like that. Him and Cabana weren't friends and stuff like anymore. Right, but it's not my business. But that Bryan Danielson is the closest thing to a perfect human being you could ever meet, apparently. So he has no haters. He has no real actual haters. The only people that hate him are a very small subset of fans that resent him for how Roman Reigns ended up getting treated in the years after, when they buried him and pushed Roman. They're the only people.
I mean, but that wasn't his fault directly. He never had anything to do with that.
And also there's about 20 of them. So
you're gonna be pretty sick in the head if you think that. Look, the thing is, do you remember what it was like online the day that Danielson came back in 2016? Or was it 2000? No, it was not 2016. It was 2018. 18, yeah, 3 years ago. Do you remember that? I remember that. I was like, this is huge, and it overtook everything. And I was excited for him, even though the fact of the matter was he was going to return somewhere where I wasn't really going to see him.
Yeah.
But it was enormous, and people obviously love him. And his, if you want to talk about him, actually, he had even a shorter time at the top than Punk did. Really, if you think about it, it was like the run up to Mania 30, and then afterwards, like the month afterwards or something. And then I guess his last run, I didn't really see much of it, but I don't think it was anywhere near.
That's right. I just want to point out we have a god in the chat. We have Mets for Life 7557 on the exact same wavelength of us, pointing out, just look at the numbers back then did when it got bumped to FS1. Only 1.03 million. Exactly. Thank you. There we go. That is exactly what we're talking about here. Cable numbers are always going to be lower than network numbers. Every time.
Oh, you're right.
There are very few exceptions.
Exactly.
There we go. Exactly. Thank you.
It's interesting to me as well, like, people are talking about all this, like, Roman Reigns, this, John Cena, The Rock, it doesn't matter. That you're not going to get those guys wrestling on a full-time basis ever again.
No.
Right? Because they're off doing their own other things. Danielson and Punk are first and foremost wrestlers, okay? And when they're going to be back wrestling full-time, that is really what's going to freak people out. Because the next argument is this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, CM Punk is only here part-time. He's not going to show up every single episode of Dynamite. He's not going to be there every week. He's only going to be there on occasions, and he'll be the new Brock Lesnar. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting because they didn't specifically address the terms of his contract in the press conference today. They said, it's not a part-time thing, and he'll be around for a while.
Yeah.
But they didn't say he'll be every single Dynamite, even though in his promo he did.
Yeah.
So I guess it's one of those things, right? It's just a watch and see at the moment.
Yeah.
But I think we'll see him like pretty much every week. It's gonna be pretty much every week. And there's too many people for him to be working with that he won't be jumping at the bit to get in there with the Moxleys, the Pages, the Omegas, the Ricky Starkses, the Young Buckses, all these guys.
Yeah, he's talked about those guys. And I think the reason why he hasn't revealed the length of the contract, like Khan said it was a full-time, long-term deal, right? So my assumption is like 3 to 5 years, because that seems to be what Khan does. He locks people down for a while. WWE do too. The reason why, and I actually take this at face value, I actually believe him. It's like, isn't the magic, do you really need to know? As long as you know that it's long term, and as long as you know that it's full time, like not part time, that's all that really matters. As he said, he hasn't watched Dark and Elevation. He said he would start watching everything, but he doesn't watch Dark and Elevation. He's not going to be on those. He's going to be a TV guy, right?
Hold on, CrystalFissure. As someone who bought his house, I want to know how much he's getting paid.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. That's true.
Okay, I want to know what his terms are. He owes it to me.
He owes
7.5 years. He owes it to me.
That quieter, he needs to get put in his place. No, but he's going to be a TV guy, as you would imagine, and so he's going to be on. The thing is, here's the thing about AEW, right? People say, "Oh, he needs to be on every single week, otherwise he's part time." Kenny Omega isn't even on the show every week, and he's the champion. Like,
that's right.
He won't be there in every city.
You can have him show up one week, do a segment or something in the ring, film a promo backstage afterwards to air on the following week, and then you don't need him to come in every week. It's fine. And I think he's going to enjoy the flexibility, because remember, one of his big problems with WWE was the constant schedule. He wanted to get injured so that he wouldn't have to wrestle.
Yeah.
Remember this. This is how traumatized this guy is.
That's right. It's a good thing that you watch that again, because it's one of those things that the Punk podcast that never really. It's never been lived down. It's never been topped. It's never been. It's simply one of the most shocking. I said it, I think, at the time on Reddit. At the time, I said no one should ever support this company again after that podcast. You should be ashamed if you give them money. And I've said that. And Patrick Ballantyne's probably gone by now. I apologize, Patrick, but to me, I just think it's shameful if you spend money on them, because it's just. Absolutely, what they did to him, they nearly killed the guy. The guy nearly became another fucking Owen Hart. Except this time, not falling to his death, but rather, like, poisoning himself, poisoning his blood with a staph infection. Fuck.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. He talked about this in the podcast. He talked about having his elbow. He needed surgery on his elbow, and he got it. And then he was like, oh, I'll take some time off, I'll get my eye. He needed laser eye surgery or whatever, so he's like, yeah, I'll do that. I'll take some time off and I'll come back later. This is around 2010, I believe, and then they had him wrestling. Who was it? Someone, John Cena or something, on an episode of Raw, the debut episode of the Nexus, right?
Yeah, that's right.
He's backstage and he's like, oh, I'm just doing a promo tonight. And Michael Hayes comes up to him and he's like, no, we need you in a match. He's like, what do you mean you need me in a match? I'm not cleared. He's like, oh, no, they called your doctor and he said it should be fine. He's like, what do you mean they called? Like, what kind of magic mumbo jumbo witch doctory shit are they dealing with here?
That's right.
And then it happened again with his knee, and it happened again after he wanted to take time off. After his Mania match with Undertaker, he wanted to take time off, come back at SummerSlam. They're like, oh, we put doing the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago. We need you to wrestle Jericho. You gotta come back.
Yeah.
Like, they just mistreated this guy. They didn't take his wishes into regards.
It sounds like this is going to be the new, where he is now is going to be a much more collaborative relationship, even though Punk himself said, I'm basically beholden to Khan. Khan, you do whatever the fuck you want. You want me to go to Impact, I'll do it. You want me to go to G1 in New Japan, I'll do it.
Oh, I bet Impact was sitting there going, yes, come to us, please.
That's right. Again, going back to the people dunking on the guy that was crying. Someone, I think this is a guy from What Culture, Andy Murray. He says, wait, Andy Murray? Yeah. Not the tennis guy. They say the people dunking on the crying CM Punk guy wish they could ever be as into wrestling as that guy was last night. And I that's 100%. And this guy responds and says they're jealous of the emotions AEW provides. These guys are cold, envious, salty, live to see AEW fail, and they are frustrated because last night was a huge win for AEW. May they find peace one day. I would hate to be in their boots. Oh, me too. It would just suck. It would honestly fucking suck to be so stuck to AEW, to hating it, that you just can't enjoy what that was. You know,
Oh, I
if you're a
know.
WWE fan,
I
you
just
should be
like
loving it.
if you do, you have no love in your life if you can't enjoy that. Okay, maybe that's a bit different, but I see a lot of people in around the scene, contemporaries and everything like that, who just say wrestling is not what it used to be. It was way better back in the day. I'm sort of I kind of casually am into it, but I'm not really into it. But
Yeah,
all this kind of stuff. Whereas I think you and I are unabashedly, unapologetically wrestling fans to this
yeah.
day.
Yeah.
And
We'll watch a GCW
I
show.
don't
We'll
think.
buy Impact. We'll go to Japan. We'll do it all. We support the industry
Yeah, I'm
to
looking
its
wearing like
core.
a New Japan bomber
Yeah,
jacket right now.
that's right.
And that's I think that's the thing. It's like, uh, I, the real ones, are the ones who, when wrestling, when what you're watching is not doing it for you anymore, you don't just tune out completely. You look for alternatives. You find
Yeah.
other places. I mean, you know, for me, there was like, okay. First of all, NXT comes along and does its thing, and we're like, yeah, okay. And
Mm-hmm.
Raw and SmackDown are shitty, whatever,
Yeah.
but NXT is good because all the guys we like are on NXT, and for a time, it was a really special, different thing, and we loved it, and we really liked it. But then I think over time, we sort of like realized that this is still WWE. There's
Mm-hmm.
got to be other stuff,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you got into your Lucha Underground, and we got into New Japan and all the other Japanese promotions, and we really went through a big phase there. And then AEW came along, and there was just enough content to satiate us to the point where, even if we liked WWE, we wouldn't have the time to watch it
Yeah.
because there's
That's
enough
right.
stuff to keep me going. I wouldn't want to watch it,
So
and it just instead of just being a little piss baby and saying, "Ah, fuck all wrestling," I'll
yeah.
just go back and watch Diesel vs Undertaker from WrestleMania 12 over and over again on
Yeah,
repeat.
like, yeah,
Instead of that,
and
let's go find something we actually want to watch that's wrestling today.
and it always sounds like we have personal examples for this, and the sad thing is that we do. We have personal examples of this kind of behavior being exhibited by people that we know in our life, and like even people today, like there's one of the guys high up, was remarking about how he saw it everywhere and he was so excited about it and everything like that, to see Punk return, while another contemporary was like, meh. He says, meh. And he's just telling himself that because he can't accept that something that he would call WWECW, WWAEECW or something like that, TNA. He had said that it was just all guys from other companies and stuff.
Yeah.
He can't accept that something that he didn't back from the beginning has had success. And so that's why he lashes out. And a lot of wrestlers that want to make it lash out because they think that, I said this before today, and I think it's a really good point, is that, I think people think that WWE's tapped their phones. They're not allowed to enjoy anything else but a WWE. And I think that permeates in the wrestling industry itself. I mean, it literally permeates in the industry when Tommaso Ciampa comments goosebumps about it. And then just 2 hours later, he has it taken down. Why?
That's right. No, you're
because
right.
he's afraid
Totally.
of losing his fucking job because he tweeted because he enjoyed something that wasn't from WWE. So if you're an employee there, you got to be scared. But if you're just a regular human being, don't be scared. Don't be scared to like something. It's okay. It's
fine. And that's the thing. I think it's like you have don't discount the power of nostalgia, the power of legacy, the power of lineage, the power of all this stuff, history. I mean, as bad as WWE will ever get, it'll be like people will be like, oh well, it's the place that gave us Hulkamania, it's the place that gave us the Attitude Era, it's the place that gave us all this kind of stuff. And I might not like what they're putting out today, but I can go back and watch the past. And you know what?
Yeah.
If you want to live in the past, please do. But you can't grow and learn and improve if you just consistently dwell on the wrestling of the past. And I think there has to be at some point this sort of crunch time where you have to admit to yourself that your opinions and your viewpoint and that don't translate to the modern day because you don't care about it in the modern day. You're not engaged in it in the modern day. And I'm not gonna, as John Inju said, like what you like. I'm not gonna bash you for going back and watching WWE constantly, from 2001, whatever. But that's your thing, right? You don't get to comment on AEW. You don't get to criticize it and look into it and critique it. That's not your thing. You're not into that.
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
us like that, and you could go back and like your stuff from 20 years ago.
Yeah, you could go and watch Survivor Series '04 and have a great time, but don't talk about the modern wrestling scene like like anything. Andy King says, "I really hate to take that AEW is just all ex WWE. I've got a feeling that some of these fans have the belief that WWE is now full of wrestlers stumbled upon in the parking lot instead of the indies." That's right. WWE is all ex TNA, all ex ROH, as they say, right?
Yep. Well, not for long. Once this new Vegas tryout thing happens, it's going to be full of roided up muscle.
I just said this today to someone, someone in the Australian industry. I said, mate, they just signed 14 basically untrained guys. Where do you think that leaves Australian wrestlers now for WWE? If they've just signed some giants from Vegas who flew to Vegas from America, right? From all over the country, they've flown there. They signed 14 out of 38 people or something like that. Where do you think that leaves your indie stars that you talk about here? That that in the parking lot, so to speak. Those days are over now, Andy. Those days are over. That's the thing. It's like WWE got all their guys from PWG. This is basically what happened was William Regal decided, he figured out, how can I get paid to go watch some really cool wrestling and then sign a bunch of guys? And they said, hey, go down to PWG. He's like, oh, can I go down to PWG? He got to go there, see some awesome shows, and sign everyone from there. That was their scouting. And they're all from other places. But now those days look to be over. And it's going to only benefit AEW, Ring of Honor, Impact, MLW, New Japan, Such Strong, NWA. This whole WWE change in mentality, the only people it doesn't benefit are the talentless, only wanting to do promos, kind of bullshit, smoke and mirrors wrestlers that can't hack it in today's game. That's what it comes down to.
True. I mean, like, look no further than Triple H's board of like world domination that he had, where he's like, look, these are all the companies we're going to move the NXT brand, all the countries we're going to move the NXT brand.
Global localization, he said. He called it.
And his whole plan, of course, and you can see what it did to the poor, decrepit, dead scene in the UK, is that you were going to set up an NXT base of operations and then sign a bunch of guys from the indies, the various indies in the land, and then tell them, no, you guys can't work anywhere else. You got to work here now. This is your new place. And then no one gets on board with it. No one watches it. It just sort of is this obscure little thing. And the indie scene is dead over there. It's dead. They killed it. And he was going to do it in Japan. Japan fought back. They stopped it. No one really got on board with the idea.
The amount of companies that turned it down in Japan was at least 5. I know it was. And John Ninja, I know that you're in Japan. I saw New Japan over there plenty of times. I know that New Japan turned him down, Stardom turned him down, BJW turned him down. I think Sendai Girls is the closest thing to kind of not really turning them down, because Sendai Girls...
BJW, they wanted to work with them too.
Yeah, Sendai got... Meiko Satomura, so I guess that kind of worked. And then a couple other, I think Noah also turned them down, and I think All Japan also said no. But one of our friends that has a few insider friends said that the All Japan one was the closest thing to happening, because they weren't doing too great financially. So it was very close to getting, we were very close to getting an NXT Japan, but the pandemic ensured that didn't happen, which is
that's right. But
good, I guess.
I think at that point though, at the point where they were looking into the scene over there, especially in the UK, there was this not so much in America, because I feel like in America at that time, Impact was in 2016, 2017, TNA Impact, whatever, was unviable. Ring of Honor was like the closest thing, I guess, because you had the guys who worked in New Japan working there through that relationship, but MLW wasn't really a thing. And there was lots of like small companies, but nothing really. PWG was its own niche thing. But the point being was that the UK was where the situation seemed to be popping off. UK and Japan, and it seemed more like the landscape was changing into a global landscape, and you'd
That's
have
right.
WWE as the powerhouse in the US, and then Japan would be the new place to be. Like this New Japan jacket I'm wearing, New Japan seemed to be the number two promotion in the world.
Yeah,
And then you had UK and all that stuff. And so WWE was like, all right, we've got to stamp that out. We've got to
we gotta
stop it
stamp
over
it
there,
out.
overseas.
That's right.
We've got
The
to
thing
make.
is, you just with AEW's alliances,
Hmm.
you simply can't do that anymore. You just can't. And so, and to quickly mention as well, back to the UK. As Andy says here, says I'm from the UK and the scene was incredible around the WCPW time. We literally have no one left now. And that's the thing. WCPW was a fever dream of a promotion that somehow managed to get some of the biggest names in the last 10 years worked there and worked there semi-regularly. You had Cody working there. You had Osprey, you had Will, you had Ricochet, you had all these talented people, all from around the world, come over there to watch this company ran by these fucking guys from What Culture. It's insane.
YouTube personalities ran it,
Yeah.
and that was the first real test of can we organize a wrestling fan base through the internet, and it worked.
And they fucked it. No, and the other thing too is that they really got close. They really fucked over. WCPW really got fucked over because when the NXT UK thing started to come in, they said, "Oh yeah, we're still going to allow you to work dates." They pulled everyone, including their champion Joseph Connors, from the show, and William Regal. That's when I turned on William Regal, when he actively lied about what they were doing with WCPW. Do you remember that? How they basically were like, "Oh, you're allowed to." Yeah, it was sickening. It was sickening stuff.
That was around the time of NXT UK. I think
2017. Basically, 2017 is when it was all.
Yeah,
happening.
just before they became defiant, because remember they really got hurt by the NXT UK situation.
That's right. And then the guys left and made Cultaholic. So 2 comments here. I remember some rumors of them being somewhat close with All Japan because Akiyama was at the PC but never went anywhere. Exactly. Yes, that's exactly right. And obviously then they got Hideki Suzuki, who is from BJW, but he's fucked now. He's in a dead faction. So good for you,
and I
Hideki.
think he's a bit. I mean, he must be beat up or something. Like he's not wrestled since he started over there.
And Jay Light says, I was massively into TNA back in the day, but I fell out of it when Hogan came. It didn't watch much to the Kenny Okada matches, and now I find myself tuning every Wednesday for AEW. And there's thousands of you. Thousands of you, Jay.
And
you're
to
the
that
best.
point about, me too, I was huge into TNA at the time. There was something less produced about it that I really liked until Hogan and Bischoff came in, and that kind of turned the tide for me. And it just, I don't know, it was as Punk said years ago in his podcast, and I guess this kind of, if you can kind of translate it here.
Yep.
Too many people had their own agendas over there. There was too many people standing on their own dicks, as he says. And there was, it was the politics was still there because you still had a company at that time, once all the Hogan and Bischoff hires happened, of the ex-WWE guys who had been through that system and had to politic and had to fight their way to get anything in WWE. And now the same thing was happening in TNA, in Impact.
Bad.
Whereas AEW's strength lies in the fact that, it's first and foremost got Tony Khan, who's very smart, competent guy, totally unlike anything we've seen before in these promoters, combined with the new age sentiments of the EVPs, who don't want to do things like the WWE.
They don't. And
It's
people
the
say
closest thing we're ever going to get to WCW pre, I should point this out, the NWO, because those guys coming in was great at the start, and then obviously the guaranteed contract situation.
And people think that
the creative control clauses in everyone's contract really fucked them up. And then Bischoff lost control.
People have paranoia that they'll just happen with Punk and Danielson, but they're just different people. They're just inherently more selfless people. Sorry. Someone joked, he said, Danielson is a bit different to Punk in that he probably is demanding to start on dark and build up wins by starting up by jobbing to Daniel Garcia and then building his way up to beating Matt Sydal or something like that when he comes in before, Daniel Bryan Danielson is the most selfless man in wrestling. So these are not Hall and Nash and Hogan. They're just simply different.
No, and I think
they're actually more popular
for the time. Back in that period, being a WCW guy, this is the closest it must have felt like to that, because I mean, the NWO when it started and all that stuff was cool, but you
Yeah,
have to kind of remember that it's built on the backs of guys that went to WCW not because of the passion for the wrestling, but because of the money that they could have got in WCW. And it just so happened that Bischoff had a really cool idea that he kind of took from what was happening in New Japan with the UWF situation
yeah,
and turned that into his own invasion angle. But they were mostly, financially sort of motivated. And I guess the extra side effect of also outgrowing the WWF at the time was probably something. But you can by their own admission, Hall and Nash have said that they went there because Vince couldn't offer them comparable money. And I don't get the feeling that Punk is here for the money. I don't get the feeling
yeah.
that Danielson's
No,
here for the money.
no.
Uh, but in
The
saying
money's
that,
a nice bonus, of course, that they can afford to be paid well for their time.
well, that's right. But as I was about to say though, when these guys come in, what they will be doing is bringing eyeballs to the product, which will make the product in turn more valuable, which will make the TV rights fees go up, which will make the salaries go up, which means everyone will get paid more
So
in the long run, in a sustainable way. In a sustainable way, you're not
yeah, that's right.
signing
It's a
huge contracts when you don't have the money to back it up.
Yeah, and I think people have speculated that's what Vince thinks that they're doing with AEW. They might be able to bleed them dry by basically letting them go, a bunch of guys, hiring them all up. But the thing is that won't happen because there's a guy by the name of Chris Harrington who we witnessed walk into the TGI Fridays to sign the Young Bucks to contracts about now almost 2 years ago, over 2 years ago actually. We saw AEW be born in the background before we went to a 0-1 show back in 2019, and
that's pretty crazy. I sometimes forget about that.
Yeah, we saw it happen, and the thing about that, my point about that is basically that Chris Harrington is not there to fuck around. He's a money guy and he's a stats guy, and so if they don't have it in the budget, they're not going to do it. End of. That's their business. Like, they're not just going to go hire people.
For CM Punk, you can find room in your budget for that.
But again, finding room means that you can find room. If you know what I mean, like that's what it comes down to. Is that if you can determine through research and feeling and analytics that you're going to make more money than you spend on the guy, then yeah, of course it's absolutely worth it.
Totally right.
So
now should we just quickly talk about the first dance itself, like just briefly?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
We should probably just talk about the show that he debuted on because, I think to us, it will go down in history as one of the greatest hours of television of all time.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at it on Cage Match currently. It sits with a total rating of, after 128 votes, 9.33.
Yeah.
Which is one of the highest rated shows of all time on Cage. Actually, let me just check this.
Only ones that are higher are like Brody Lee tribute show, something else.
Okay, of all time, the highest rated show. It's the top of the the past 4 weeks, but of all time, let's have a look. The highest rated show, according to Cage Match. I mean, this is obviously a very specific user base. It is the second highest rated show of all time, according to Cage Match.
Yeah, and I mean, it wasn't in terms of like the matches after. Like the matches were just, I mean, they were definitely not bad, but I think it was just kind of, they were just there. Every single match one match probably went slightly too long, and then the other one just needed a little bit of extra time for it to be really balanced. Really, if I'm being critical at all, and I understand it's really hard with the way that commercial times and stuff. My only criticism is I would have tweaked up the heat in the Jurassic Express versus Private Party match, and then with that extra 2 minutes, given an extra 2 or 3 minutes to the Daniel Garcia Moxley match, which was actually quite good for the short time it was given.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like, one of my complaints about AEW, and they're still finding their feet, I guess, with this part of it, and especially in this new hour format, is the timing of like how to time your shows out on the fly rather than like, oh crap, we're running down to the clock. Cut it. Like, they should have been able to foresee after the Punk thing that they were going to have timing issues and maybe brought the time down on the Jurassic Express match and then given a bit more. But because the show did like on Fight TV, so to international viewers, it kind of ended abruptly.
Yeah.
We didn't see the end segment
Very
of
end,
the
yeah.
Darby Allin coffin flop,
Yeah.
coffin drop.
Yeah,
But
coffin
yeah, no,
flop segment.
look. Let's just. I mean, the tag match was great. I mean, I really liked it. It was very good for what it was.
Great spots in it, yeah. But
Great
just that
spot.
little
The
bit too long, a little bit
Canadian
too
spot
long.
was
I
incredible.
think people were upset that Kara Hogan got basically squashed, but I think that as much as I like resonate with that, I understand that she's now been featured 3 times in the space of about 8 days. So 7 days actually. In fact, no. She was on this Tuesday, this Wednesday, and this Friday. She's been featured 3 times in less than a week.
That's right. Yeah.
They know there's something there with her, and they're waiting, and they're
And look, her
feeling
first
that
3
don't
opponents
worry about it.
she's wrestled Sheeta, Statlander, now Jade Cargill.
3 of the top 5, really,
Yeah,
if you think about
really.
it in terms of like perception and everything like that. So
Yeah, I mean, look, and her match going a minute was, understandable, but given that you're getting Cargill over, but also, come on, you're wrestling in front of 15,000 people in the United Center on the show CM Punk debuted on, and you're not even signed to the company officially yet. I mean, like, seriously. I mean, I talk about things to complain about. There are a great many things you can complain about. I would not be sitting there complaining about that, to be honest.
Speaking of not being signed, Garcia is not officially signed, but they want him. When he says he's weighing up options, he's legit. I mean, WWE might throw an offer at him now because why the fuck not? But even though their directives change, they probably still want people if they know the competition can't have them. Tony Khan really wants him to team with 2.0 as like a permanent thing, and fuck oath, I would love that. Those guys, I mean, we talk about this in real life a lot. 2.0, 2 for the show, they go from being jobbers on NXT, basically never having any success at all,
Yep.
to now being featured many weeks now as a main act almost. In an enhancement capacity, that is what they exist for. But
yeah,
these guys are fucking veterans. They're incredible.
He beat Fuego and he beat Matt Sydal, so that's something, I guess, to remark about. But I mean, the cool thing with Garcia is he comes from that Buffalo school area. He was trained by the Blade with Grapplers Anonymous. And obviously we've seen it in the pandemic era where they would have all these Buffalo guys from the Blade School show up on Dark and Elevation, and they'd do those matches. And clearly they saw something in him, and this is the best scouting you can really do. Is a lot of these AEW guys have their own schools. You got like the Rhodes Factory, you got the like Dustin Rose's school, you got the Nightmare Factory, you got Mission Pro with Thunder Rosa, you got the Blade School up in Buffalo, you got Creator Pro. You've got all these places, and you have the coaches wrestling on your show. So you're like, okay, Tony Khan, let's go to the Blade. Hey, Blade, who should we bring in for a Dark taping? Give us a couple guys, and Blade will pick his top prospects, bring them down, they'll wrestle, and then Tony Khan will be like, yeah, this Garcia guy's really good. Let's use him.
That's right.
And then the ball just goes from there.
Yeah.
And it's really cool, and you're seeing these guys get developed in real time. And it's a really organic way to do it too, because they get experience in front of the crowds.
They do.
And Kira Hogan as well, wrestling in front of 15,000 crowds. I mean, you could look at Impact as another potential developmental. It's cool stuff.
It is, and I think I would predict that she'll end up signed. To be honest, because I think she's quite good. She's there's a lot to like. But that was cool. And then the main event, like Moxley is this. There's definitely a slow turn starting. I think people have picked up on it. His aggression has become a lot lately. And so I'm really I really like it. I'm loving that kind of mentality.
Do you think Moxley has to turn heel, or do you think it's just like he can just get a new side to him, but he can just organically be the same guy?
He may actively turn at some point.
You think so?
But I do think that for now it's leaning more into that direction without actually being a heel, so to speak. I just think he's definitely more tweenery than he's been. I think that was very evident when he came out and basically said that that Hangman wasn't a real cowboy and that Christian should stay retired. Like that's more edge than a usual Moxley thing. So I'm loving it personally. I think it's been really
I guess
good.
when you got Punk now coming into your roster, he kind of fulfills the similar space that that Mox did fill when he originally came in. So you
Yeah.
could say, well, now it's time to go somewhere new with Moxley now that we've got Punk.
I'm sure we'll see an actual Mox heel run at some point for sure, like actual heel, maybe towards the end of his career. But yeah, I'd say there's very much a chance you see that, but not yet. But yeah, but no, but the other highlights from the promo. I'm trying to think of some other highlights of the promo.
Well, there was the Omega promo where he was
Oh yeah, for
talking about
sure.
how he was going to make sure that that Christian was going to stay retired after he was going to regret coming back and say 7 years off you're going to regret coming back.
Yeah,
And his other line, he's like, the first dance, this was all a setup for me,
yeah,
and now it's destroyed or it's wasted or whatever he said.
brilliant.
It was great. It was like he's playing the delusional Michael. He thinks he's Michael Jordan, like franchise player guy who gets Michael Nakazawa to stand there and hold the fucking belt to the camera because he doesn't want to do it. Like it's perfect. He's playing it to perfection, and it's just the Macbeth-esque downfall of him is going to be a joy to behold.
No, it is. It is. I mean, yeah, he's the man. And I think there's the thing is like, I say this and I talk about CM Punk, and it's the most important thing to happen to the industry for such a long time. But I'm still excited about the stuff I like on the show without him, and that's the important thing is that like I'm not one of those people that's going to be commenting on stuff and go don't care, just want CM Punk content. Like for me, CM Punk is now an addition to this great show that I get to look forward to. He's not the only part of the show. He's gonna bring people in, and you hope that they stay for the rest of the show.
AEW is about to do a ratings draw, for the next few weeks. It's going to do pretty good, and then you're going to have its most bought pay-per-view of all time,
Yeah,
I
for
think.
sure, it's happening.
And if there's any surprises on that show, then the show
course there
afterwards,
will
the
be.
Dynamite afterwards, Cincinnati
Yeah.
with Mox could be huge, and then you've got the
Newark.
show in New Jersey, and then you've got the Arthur Ashe show, and then you've
Arthur Ashe, they're peaking for that one. So
oh my god,
September's is going to be nuts.
there is just going to be so much to talk about, and that's why we've got the channel, the CrystalFissure Wrestling channel.
That's right. So I've got a great comment from this is translated from Spanish. One of my favorite guys. I highly recommend you go follow him. His name is Don Coronavirus. We're going to hear a lot from him because he's my favorite guy. He's a guy from Chile, I believe. Chile, Providencia, Chile, and he knows English, but he tweets a lot in Spanish. And it's absolutely hilarious. He says, I'm going to shit laughing when the Sheiks ask WWE to bring in Jericho and CM Punk to Arabia Mania. Probably WWE is going to pass them on, but in exchange for the rights to Starrcade, Halloween Havoc, and a lot more. That business would be very good. Wink. He's basically what he's implying there in that sort of broken translation is that they'll give him they'll let him work there, but they've got to give him all the rights to some of those names that they want again.
They don't need those names. They don't need anything anymore.
Oh,
they don't need anything from WWE.
No.
It's over. This is the start of it all. I mean, they've been laying the foundation, but this is the beginning. I truly believe that we're entering into a
new era where they have a grown man, two grown men, Taz and Mark Henry, look like the happiest men alive because they got a free ice cream bar. I'm just looking at this photo right now of Mark Henry with an ice cream bar.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Oh, that's the greatest thing ever. And like Taz spilling his ice cream, like
Taz is having the time of his life. These
are
guys that like really.
These are WWE someone not Taz, but these guys are like WWE lifers that have now making the jump, and now you hear them shitting on the them as if they never were there, like Malenko and stuff like that. I love it.
Malenko, they got him in.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to love, and I'm excited for Dynamite this week. It's an interesting lineup. You've got your Malachi Black match on there. That's a match that we never thought we would even want. Is Malachi Black Punk? Yeah. That's something you've got in the back pocket. You've got so much. There's just, I think, on one hand you've got AEW where there's so many combinations of guys that could work together. and on the other hand, you've got the situation in WWE where there's like, I don't even know what they would do after SummerSlam, and I don't really care. And then you've got, as Mets for Life says, you've also got New Japan guys who could come
Yep,
in once the
that's right.
AEW wells run dry. Um, to his point about Suzuki and all that stuff, I think we're going to see Suzuki Gun in AEW
Yep.
in a very short amount of time. We'll probably see Lance Archer and Minoru Suzuki team up, I think,
hmm
for a
I
match
could
over there.
love. I would love to see it.
Jay White is going to come in at some point,
Yeah,
surely.
surely,
Um,
surely.
Tomohiro Ishii is very beloved in the States. I've said this multiple times, but I think he's actually more liked in the States than he is in Japan. So,
Yeah, 100%.
um, who's Mox going to wrestle at All Out? That's still a mystery. Danielson, what the hell? How's that going to go down? We've still got Hangman Page, who's going to come back after he gives birth. His wife is giving birth.
Yeah,
This is
congrats.
There are so many things to love about wrestling right now.
That's
We
right.
watched the Resurgence show. That was great. I'm gonna watch Victory Road. Victory Road looks interesting.
Oh,
Well, it's what
Seriously,
about
Taz eating that ice cream is the greatest thing I've ever seen. He's like flailing around. He's like the happiest man I've ever seen to get an ice cream. But yeah, no,
Oh, that was great.
I agree. Like Christian's the world champion in Impact. I mean, that's just the coolest thing. Like it's like what is old is new again, but not in a pandery, pathetic way.
That's right. And then
In an
New
actual
Japan with
fun way.
fans.
New Japan,
Ring of
has been-
Honor really needs to come on. Ring of Honor, it's your turn. Next.
New Japan has been completely decimated by the pandemic, especially over in Japan. But there is light at the end of the tunnel, I think, for New Japan in Japan and in the States. They're doing great stuff right now, and it's just really. I mean, MLW doing great because they've got what's it called? Azteca Underground, which is actually like sort of a sub promotion that they're actually doing. They're taping in Mexico, so kind of like a Lucha Underground spiritual successor. They even have Dario Cueto under a new name.
That's cool.
It's
That's
it's
cool.
super cool what they're doing. MLW, don't sleep on them. And yeah, really, it does come down to Ring of Honor sort of as that last one that sort of needs that push to get.
Oh, and
to
yeah,
the
I mean
next level.
NWA they sold out the Chase,
There's-
and
their
and
have
they've
been
got
doing
Ric Flair
pretty good.
coming in, which feels right. That feels really right.
That's
what
right.
they've got.
That's the thing. We love AEW, but we know that you can't just have absolutely every single person be there. So if you're able to, the love should be shared, because I think the difference between an AEW fan and a WWE fan, for the most part, is that I think at least most rational AEW fans want to see the other promotions do well too, and then work together and you mutually benefit. That's important.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I want to see all those companies do well because, as I say, when the tide rises, all the ships come up with it.
It doesn't apply to WWE, and funnily enough, neither does Vince. Doesn't think that about AEW. He's like,
I'm not talking about that
because they're not
company.
wrestling.
No.
Exactly. That's right. Exactly.
They don't exist in the wrestling extended universe. They don't exist because they're not involved.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah,
They have no bearing. They are irrelevant.
that's right.
And that's the thing that they don't want to accept, and the thing that you can slanderize them as much as you want. You can call them a blood money company. You can say that they're shits, that Vince McMahon's an evil man all day long. But the one thing that they detest above all else is being irrelevant.
Yeah, being irrelevant. Yeah, or being
Not
called
being
wrestling.
even worthy of even acknowledgement.
That's right.
by
And
name.
they that's why they do those polls where they're like, hey, what wrestling do you guys watch? Do you watch AEW? Do you watch? They send that out to their fans every now and then to be like, what are you watching? And NXT being killed is just only going to make it even worse for them. And Matt for Life says he doesn't have an obvious opponent, but it does feel like they're setting up for Mox for something big, still holding out for Switchblade or Suzuki all out match. Me too. One of the two would be excellent. I'd be ecstatic for that. But yeah, Mox is an interesting one. There's a lot of interesting things happening with him, I think. He's doing a lot. Hangman, of course, don't forget about him. I can't wait to get our first Hangman Punk interaction. I'll probably shit my pants when that happens. I'll be a pants shitter at that point.
Well, Andrew, one of them drinks, the other one doesn't drink. It writes itself.
Writes itself, yeah. It does, doesn't it? Absolutely
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's much more left to say. We've been going for about an hour and a half almost.
It's pretty good.
You
It's
got
just a
any final thoughts?
yeah. I think there's more to say, but it needs to come up as it comes up. And there's plenty. As he said, he said, I love this line from him. He's like, I've got plenty of time. Basically, it's like I've got time. We're not. He said this. He said we're not going to get through everything now, but we got time. And it's the same thing here. We're going to start. We want to see what the impact is. We want to see what the ratings are. We want to see what the attendance are. We want to see how he goes it all out. There's a million. We don't. Why are we rushing? We don't need to. We don't need to talk about everything. We've got so much to discuss coming up.
Not so much time.
We got
So
much
much
time.
to talk about. So much time. The world is our oyster.
Punk versus Hook. Yeah, that's the match. Actually, that's the match. It'd be the perfect
Punk Hook.
debut for. It'd be the perfect debut for Hook. Submit him clean, right? 5 minutes. I think he'd do it. I think.
I saw someone say they should bring Hook out to really liven that dead crowd up.
Yeah, oh yeah. Like it was a decent reaction. It was like about an 8.
If Hook was there.
If Hook was there, it would have been like a 15 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, I love the way that they've kept Hook's like debut as like this like undercover
It's happening.
secret
It's
operation.
happening. When it happens, it's gonna do.
Do you remember
I'm-
they kept him in like this baggy hoodie for weeks?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
they finally like took his top off and he had like the guns of and
Guns,
text of like this absolute Chad. He was giving off Chad energy.
Oh, massive,
And
massive.
And then
chat energy.
they said Hook, you good? And he says, I'm good. And then Hook later on he says, what does he say, Andrew? What's
I'm
his famous
tired of
line?
this, man.
I'm tired of this, man. He
Yeah.
calls his dad man.
Yeah.
And then the other week he did the Brian Cage thing. He didn't say anything, but he did the the
Yeah.
thing.
Muni
Whatever
fan
he
says,
does.
dream match Punk and Brian versus Bucks. Yeah, I think you, me, and the whole world would love to see that. It'd probably be one of the coolest things ever. So,
Yeah, that's right. It would be, and there's. I mean, you know, the list. I could sit here all day and basically
no, I
list
could just say the whole roster. Be like, okay,
the whole roster. You know, Anthony Bowens, Punk versus Anthony Bowens. Tell
Cool.
me there wouldn't be a glancing interest in that match.
Yeah, that's right. There would be an interest everywhere because
He wants to work
he's just
Pillman
capturing-
Jr. Everyone wants Pillman Jr. right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, that's true. No, I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be in the Dynamite Varsity Bonds. But yeah, thank you very much for watching this. It's been great to discuss it. It's great to have Punk back. It's great to have wrestling back and in such a spotlight that to the point that, you know, I think that even people that don't know anything about it, they know. You know, if you don't know, you know. You know,
Yes,
it's a
exactly.
big news story.
Or in the words of Luther, you already know.
You already know.
You
Thank
got to
you
get
guys.
a Luther reference in there somewhere.
Of course. Thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you later.